And welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and I want to thank you folks for joining us here on this program. This is the beginning of an interesting endeavor. This program is also going to be an interesting endeavor because it's not exactly up the same lines that we don't usually go, but at the same time, it kind of is. I mean, and I'll tie it all together. Don't you worry. I'm not going to say I'm the master of segues, but what I'm going to tell you is that I see the connection between what we're going to talk about today and what we talk about on this program on a regular basis. New paradigms for a new world. We're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And we also we come your way every Sunday at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m. with our special edition of Tell Me Your Story. This particular program initiates, if you will, a new little venture that we have that you'll hear at the end of each of the Wednesday programs, and I hope that you enjoy it. And you'll know what we're talking about as we get started here with our guest. I also want to let you know that we podcast these programs. Oh, I need to let you know we stream live at the times I just mentioned: Sundays at 7 and 7, Mondays at 1 and Wednesdays at 9 at richarddugan.com. That's where we stream these programs at those times as well. We also podcast on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, many other locations across the internet, too numerous to mention, but we're also on YouTube, where you can watch these interviews, should you be so inclined. We hope that you will. We also hope that at the very least, you will click on notification, if not subscribe. As I've said before, I'm not in it for the numbers. I'm in it to share the information, as is our guest today. So we're almost at 100,000 listens through the SoundCloud analytics from January 1 of 2018. So I'm just grateful that there have been that many listens, not necessarily that many people, just a continuation throughout the years. We're celebrating, folks. We are already into our 16th year. We just celebrated our 15th anniversary back on the 7th of September. So very excited about that. And also, we ask that if you can support the work that we're doing here, you'd like to be a part of what we're doing on a financial/energetic level. And we've talked about this on and on throughout this program. We have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. Just put in my email address, richard@richarddugan.com, and it will come directly to that account. And we thank you for those who have helped. And thank you for those who will. One final element, please take time to go within and listen to that still small voice. Listen to it, follow the promptings. I'm an advocate like you would not believe, folks. You know that. I share it all the time, telling you that it'll never steer you wrong. It will not steer you wrong. And all you have to do is trust. As I say often, when my wife and I made the decision to move to Santa Barbara, that was an exercise, and it sounds counterintuitive, of standing on the edge of a cliff and jumping and then trusting. So we hope that you will listen to that still small voice. All right. With all of that being said, and sometimes we leave that to the end, but I wanted to make those announcements in regards to our conversation today about a subject that is, well, for some, it might put you to sleep, but not this program and not this guest. No, my guest is Karl D. Sumner. He's not Sumner. That's somebody else that I had on a long time ago. Karl D. Susman, CPCU, CIC. What else do we have here? LUTCF, all kinds of acronyms. He's got a number, so to speak, by his name. He's got a license number. He is with a company called Susman Insurance Agency. Yes, we're going to talk insurance, but not what you think. First of all, Karl, I thank you so much for being a part of this program today, because I think it's important. That's the reason I decided let's do this. Let's talk about this, because It's either going to stress you out or it's going to give you peace of mind.
Well, that's for sure. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here and chat with you today, and that and my last name. That's a bonus now, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I no, but insurance is one of those things. It's not like when you're growing up, your parents say, be a doctor, be a lawyer, be a congressman, be an insurance person. That's not usually in that list. But it
No.
turns out that now more than ever, because of so many changes, it really is important to have a professional sort of looking out for you. And the level of basic knowledge that consumers need to have, just the basic is just higher than it used to be. So I'm hopeful that I can help allow people to get just that basic new foundation that they need to have.
Yeah, and you didn't have to years gone by. My parents, when they got married in the late 50s and into the 60s and 70s, you just knew that it was a better thing to have life insurance, auto insurance, homeowners insurance. Of course, you had to have homeowners insurance. Now you have to have auto insurance up to a limit, and all the other forms thereof, maybe end of life insurance, that kind of thing. And you just had it, and you just felt better because when you needed it, it was there. I don't know if life was simpler then. I really don't, but I do know that I am glad that I have had it over the years. The life insurance, not so much, because I've always felt like I'm betting against myself. And yet at the same time, it gives peace of mind to those left behind, knowing, oh, I don't have to take care of that and so forth. So we're
That's
going
so
to talk.
affectionate. That.
Yeah, exactly. Isn't that nice? We're going to talk about the history of insurance, along with understanding the basics of personal insurance. What is liability insurance? How can I save money on insurance? That's a big one, especially these days. And are all insurance policies basically the same? We've got a laundry list of things we're going to try to get through. And I will also tell you folks that this is not the only place that you're going to be able to hear Karl Susman. We are going to be featuring a little vignette on Wednesday mornings following Tell Me Your Story that is going to help you better understand the work that he does, but also the work that you need to do, okay, in order to have, and this, I just really believe this, have that peace of mind. So with a maybe a phrase here, we'll talk Insurance 101. Let's talk a little bit about this whole aspect of insurance, because it doesn't seem to me that it's been around as long as, man's been around. I don't know, depending upon how you calculate it, 10,000, 20,000. I know insurance hasn't been around 20,000 years. I'd be lucky if insurance has been around for 200 years. So enlighten us here as we talk about this aspect of what is the history of insurance?
Well, it is, and again, I will admit that I am an insurance nerd. So what gets me excited, and the history of it probably does not get everybody as excited as it does me. But as far as the history of it goes, it's funny, you're talking a couple hundred years. You would assume, believe it or not, there are records back into the 1700 BC Babylonian text in the Code of Hammurabi that talks about insurance related concepts and sharing of the risk. And let's face it, that's a long time ago. We're talking the first dynasty of Babylon that we've got texts from that mentioned pooling money or resources for sharing in risk. It's crazy.
Well, I know that is the basic, shall we call it the formula today, sharing the risk. And I know that a lot of folks, they don't quite understand how. I don't understand. I've had a clean, say, driving record. I've never filed a claim. And yet my premiums keep going up and up and up and up. And that's something we'll get into a little bit later. Talk to us about the connection that you have with insurance, because this apparently goes back for you and your family tree, shall we say, your lineage, goes back a ways. There's been a connection that you've had. And so maybe this is I think you even say this yourself. This is like in your DNA.
It is, and we'll jump back to a little more recent time on his insurance history, just so people, but of how we can relate to in more modern times. But yeah, as far as I'm concerned, and I guess I can rattle through it. I was the typical, young man where growing up, I was supposed to be a doctor. That was the plan, right? And that was the plan until I dissected a fetal pig in college, and then I said, this is not the plan anymore. That went by the wayside very quickly. And then it morphed into, well, I'm really a good computer geek, so I'll go into computer science. And then I realized, yeah, that's not really for me. There's an awful lot of hopping between different jobs and employers in that field. I don't like that. And then I had this epiphany. Look at the rest of my family and what they've done and what they're doing, and everyone, and I'll buzz through it for you. Everyone is in the insurance industry. My father, who I will dedicate every appearance I ever make with related to insurance to, I recently lost in July of this year. He was an insurance executive and a main guy at a major insurance carrier. My mother worked in the insurance industry as a broker for a carrier. I got married and my wife entered the industry with me. My sister was a claims adjuster. Her husband was a fraud investigator. We now hired their son. He works for us now. I've got an aunt and uncle that are both insurance agents. One of their kids is an insurance agent. I had a cousin that was working in insurance in IT for a while. The funny part of the story is my two children have zero interest in the insurance industry. So apparently this tree may stop with us unless there's some major shift at some point, because my children don't have any interest, and everyone else seems to be doing their own thing. So insurance really is in my DNA. It's something that I've grown up hearing about. It's something that I've known about forever on some level. And I think it seemed like the natural progression. I graduated from college with my first degree, which was psychology. And what are you going to do with that? Well, I'm going to be an insurance agent, apparently. And it wasn't until more than 30 years later that I decided to go back and get some additional formal education in insurance, and picked up a master's in insurance management from Columbia University in New York. You can never know it all, right?
Yeah.
So that's been sort of my family DNA and current history in the insurance business.
Well, I tell you, we've seen all the stereotypical comical aspects of it on TV and in movies in days gone by. With what was there was this one television program. This one guy walks around a neighborhood in his suit with a briefcase and his hat, and he's walking around door to door trying to sell, life insurance and all of those different things. And sometimes people will open the door, and other times, no, thank you, and they slam the door in his face. And there's a heck of a lot of rejection in that regard. But that was then. This is now. And there are, for example, auto insurance. It is now required, if I'm not mistaken, in all 50 states. You have to prove that your vehicle, and your vehicle at least, is insured up to a certain point. There is a bare minimum in that regard. The
way it works, and that's actually a great segue for me, because that's actually a misconception. But first, I have to take your reference. The guy in the hat we're referencing is Ned Ryerson in Groundhog's Day.
Yes.
And he is a hero of mine. He will be. First, that's one of my all-time favorite movies. I think it's the one and only movie that I've actually, I'm making air quotes, purchased on iTunes, because I just had to have permanent access always. It's just the best movie to me for so many reasons. But anyway, Ned Ryerson is the impression that people have of insurance, right?
Yeah.
It's this crazy, wacky guy talking about terms that make no sense and things that we don't want to hear about and things we don't want to know about. your point about auto insurance and it being mandatory to have insurance on your car is what people think. Actually, what's required is that you have liability insurance in the event you hurt or damage someone else's car or someone else's body or people in the car. There's actually no guideline or regulation that says you have to insure your car or you for that matter at all. It's that you have to carry insurance in case you damage or hurt something or someone else.
Well, I will tell you that since I moved to Santa Barbara, now I've only been driving since I was 38 years of age. For reasons I'll explain sometime down the road. But I did have, of course, in Arizona when I was living there, I had insurance, and I was driving this beautiful, beautiful little Chevy Metro. Now I called it beautiful because I liked it. It was just the cutest little thing. Got great gas mileage. Could really use that today. And I was driving along a main thoroughfare, and this woman in a gorgeous Mustang convertible pulled out in front of me. I had no time to react. I plowed into the back of her. Now, the sad fact is the airbag's deployed. The car is now totaled. My car is totaled. She sustained, are you ready for this? Only $500 in damage to her vehicle, and my car's gone. But I am still at fault because even though she pulled out in front of me, and I didn't even see her pull out, it's just crazy. But anyway, I was glad I had the insurance because we got a few dollars. I was able to buy another used car, and I moved on. Since in Santa Barbara, we've used our insurance policy on the auto, I think 4 times. And we have been through 4 vehicles and so forth. Again, I am glad that we had the insurance, and we pay a premium for that. And I use that more metaphorically than literally. I mean, we pay the premium every month, but I'm talking about we pay a higher premium for a 0 deductible because we don't have, that extra. I don't have $1,000 in the bank to have $1,000 deductible. It just, when we had a fire here and we were evacuated and we had to stay in hotels, we had at that time renter's insurance. I'm glad we had it because we were able to get reimbursed and it worked out just fine. Medical insurance, that's a whole nother story because I have to wonder sometimes, health insurance, I guess is a better phrase. I have to wonder sometimes if insurance companies are not in violation of practicing medicine without a license because they're making decisions on my health care. And I say that in a very generic sense. They're making decisions on my health care without having a license to practice medicine. Though I've never heard anybody sue insurance companies under that claim, but insurance agents, as a rule, decades ago, were maybe slightly above car salesmen as far as people they wanted to deal with.
You got it. Perception, exactly.
Yeah. I don't think that's now you correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think that's as true today as it was way back when.
I would like to think that's true. And I think to some extent it is. And let me tell you, the issue with health insurance is complex and it's self-inflicted. That's really the problem. Health insurance originally was designed for catastrophic losses. It was designed for getting hit by a Mack truck. Mm-hmm. You need major surgery. And then competition came in and one company said, you know what? We'll also pay a little bit if you go to the doctor for, a broken arm or something small. And then the other company says, hey, we won't make you pay that much. We'll make you pay less. And over time, it morphed into something that it was never designed to be, which is something where you pay a huge premium every month to have it. And then dribs and drabs of money you have to spend all along the way, everything from prescriptions to doctor visits to, percentages of every test they run. And it doesn't work. It sort of violates the concept of insurance. And I think that's one of the reasons that we're in this strange quandary where you hear everything from there should be single payer, Medicare for all, to group only. I mean, it's the spectrum of opinions is just all over the place. And I think the reason for that is because we're trying to take a product that was never designed to be, right? And make it into something that everybody can afford and the carriers can actually have exist. It reminds me, and this is a true story. I had somebody call me once years back, and he said he needed to get health insurance. And I said, okay. And he said, I found out I need this major procedure right away. So I need to get a policy right away. And I said, well, if you've been told you need to have surgery and you don't have a policy now, it's going to be a little challenging for us to find a company that will want to write a policy for you. And he said, well, why? I mean, that's what health insurance is for. And I said, well, if you stop and think about it for a second, if nobody paid for health insurance until they know they needed to go out and have something expensive done, how could an insurance company afford to do that, right? If they're not collecting premium all along, and then some people need procedures and some don't, and there's this balancing act, how would that possibly work financially, right? If everyone just showed up at the door, said, here's 1 month of premium, and then had to cough out $250,000, for a heart surgery or something along those lines. And it's funny because I don't remember how that conversation ended. Probably not well, because for me, it was just so bizarre that concept seemed to be missed, that he truly felt that, well, this is why I need to buy it, because I need it. It's almost like it's not a discounted dollars concept, right? Where I just want to pay $1 and have them pay $100 for me. What's wrong with that? It's just not the concept. So I think health insurance is its own animal right now, and it's different from home and auto and life and disability and long-term care. It's really its own animal, because it's trying to be something it was never designed to be. And I think until we get to a place where either there's better regulation, and regulation including funds, right? Because forcing private industry to pay when they can't possibly pay because there's not enough money coming in doesn't help anybody. So I think until we get to a point where there's actually money coming in that's going to also go along with some regulations, and we're able to take care of everybody on some level, and I say take care loosely, right? Arguably we already do. I'm told this as well too, that people will say, well, I just won't get health insurance, but if I get hurt and go into the hospital, they can't turn me away. So to some, and by the way, that is true. So there's an argument to be made that we already have a single payer program, because you can go to the doctor, you can go to the hospital, you can get care without having a premium to pay. The problem, again, is it's breaking the system that much more, right? That's being reflected in premiums that people that do have coverage are paying. And just, again, insurance is a balancing act, right? Between how much an insurance company takes, how much its expenses are, and how much it pays in claims. And there has to be a balance for it to work. And that's one of the industries right now where it's just not happening very well.
Yeah. And nobody has the magic pill, no pun intended, or a golden ticket to solve this problem any more than solving any of the other issues that we deal with, especially when it comes to our money and the things that we purchase, the things that hopefully do give us a certain amount of peace of mind. And I have to say that, for example, I mean, most recently with auto insurance, medical insurance, not so much. By the way, I find it fascinating, the penalties, for example, with health insurance. At least I think it was the way it was up until they made some modifications to it about 5 or 6 years ago, where if you didn't have health insurance, you were penalized or fined a certain dollar amount. And I'm going, first of all, how does that help the person who has no health insurance? You have now just added to their stress. You have now just added to their pre-existing health conditions. And if they had the money for the insurance, if they didn't have the money for the insurance, where do you think they're going to get the money for the penalty?
It's interesting because that concept was floated and it actually never went through. But it was for the second part, the group of folks you were talking about. It was not meant to penalize people that couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
It was meant to penalize people that could afford it, that chose not to get it. And then that money was supposed to go to help try and, again, balance that scale altogether. Fortunately, that regulation never passed, so it doesn't exist. And it was for reasons you're saying. It didn't really make sense. It wasn't as if they were going to fine, or it wasn't actually a fine. It was a tax, an additional tax.
That's what that's what they called it. That way they didn't have to,
right.
They didn't have to.
It didn't happen, but it would have been horrible because, again, to your point, the majority of people, at least in my experience, that don't have health insurance are not uninsured by choice. They're uninsured because either they don't know how to get it right. They don't know how to get it. They don't know how to use the Affordable Care Act, right? That has options that are basically subsidized by the state and by the federal government. And again, it's like we talked about. It used to be simple. You just bought a policy. And now you need to have a lot more information to be able to get through those, to sort of make your way through the jungle, right?
Yeah.
That is the insurance market.
And there's one other element too that I still don't understand. And I've shared this on the program, so I don't have a problem with that. And that is this. I don't have insurance. My wife, I'm going to put it this way, retired back on the 15th of December of 2022. And her insurance lapsed or ended on the 1st of January, 2023. Now, she is covered because she has Medicare. I, on the other hand, have nothing. And right now, I'm the thing that disturbs me is I've tried to go through some of these programs, whether it's the Affordable Care Act on the federal level or the California has its own program. Guess what? There's an enrollment period that's only 2.5 months long. I don't understand. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. But we won't go down that road.
You give some great examples because this is really what I'm trying to help people with.
Yeah.
And I will say that personally, I do not offer health insurance because of this, because there are problems and there are such specific windows that you need to follow in order to do it right. I would rather not do something than, I'd rather not do something if I can't do it right. And with health insurance, you need to just focus on that. The reason, in case you're curious, why there's an enrollment period is to battle that issue we talked about a few moments ago, which is the person that finds out they're sick and wants to get a policy and then go have the surgery the next day, right? So to try and combat that, they say, all right, we're going to pick an arbitrary period of time when people can enroll. But here's the other part.
Yeah.
I bet you could get coverage today through the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah.
There are some hoops you would have to jump through. You would not have to wait for the open enrollment period because guess what? You will not be surprised to hear in the fine print of all of this, there are other ways that you can get on a policy without being in the enrollment period. But again, who knows this? You're an intelligent person.
Yeah.
You're a consumer. You have no idea how you would do that, or you may have looked into it, or you may have done it. This is the problem, it's this lack of information being accessible for everyone so that they can know that there's more than just this 2-month period where they can get on a policy if they meet certain criteria. And it's so frustrating for me because, and again, this is why you and I spoke. Again, I know everyone loves insurance. It's one of those things.
Yeah.
My goal, and you and I talked about this, was I just want to make sure if we can get one person that ends up being able to understand, get a better price, get a policy that they wouldn't have normally, something, then I feel like we're doing good by people, right?
Absolutely.
And that really is my goal. You're a beautiful example because offline, you and I will have a 5-minute chat and I'll go over some stuff with you and you may end up having a policy at the end of the month. Yeah. And it's exactly what we're looking to do with this program, is to help people navigate what used to be, and you put it very articulately, what used to be very simple that you would just do. Yeah. Now you've got these hoops to jump through and you have to navigate and you got to say it just right. and do it just right to get to where you're going.
Yeah.
And I hope we can do that.
Well, I want to let our listeners know as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story, where we're talking with our very special guest as well as contributor to Tell Me Your Story. And I say that in the context of a little vignette. I like to call them vignettes if they're under 10 minutes that we are going to play on Wednesday mornings following this program that are going to help you. We're going to sort of keep it basic. I don't know. It's not going to be called Insurance 101. We've got another name for it, but that's kind of the premise, so that it will inform you. So you have the tools at hand to find what you're looking for, to get answers to questions. And quite honestly, I'd like to know, I'll be honest with you, I really would like to know someone. I would love to have somebody contact you or I and let us know that you actually did read from page 1 to page infinity your insurance policy. I don't know. It's like reading the terms and conditions when you are downloading.
Scroll through and click the box at the end.
You just scroll through and click the box, and that's kind of what we do with our insurance policy. We don't know. They do have a summary page usually at the front. I get that. But nobody knows the fine print as you describe it. And that's something we can talk about as well as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. We are talking basically on this program, Insurance 101. And I should let you folks know, in addition to the beautiful little vignettes that we're going to be featuring, starting with the end of this program here on Tell Me Your Story, you are going to be expanding as well to a full hour of a program of your own that will give people an opportunity to participate, to call in, to communicate. They could text you, they can email you. I don't know that you accept carrier pigeon messages, but hey, you never know. Whatever it takes, because people are curious. They're also frustrated. They also know how important that it can be when they do have it. And like I said at the front end of the program with life insurance, I had it for a while, and
gosh darn it, you didn't die, so why keep it?
Well, that was part of it, but it was actually because it termed out, and I guess that's why they call it term life insurance. But and that's the other thing too, is maybe we'll go through and do a vocabulary, a list of defining terms, as I love to do, defining terms, and I want to do that now. Because we've been talking an awful lot about some of the basics and some other things too, but describe for us what, and this, my understanding is this applies primarily, most people will associate this with auto insurance, but it applies to pretty much all the other than life insurance. The term liability insurance, what is that?
I'll answer you. I just want to, dovetail on what you said. As far as the hour program that we're going to be doing, we will be providing an email address, a text to address, a phone in address, everything. Because I think the best thing is for people to be able to reach out with their questions. You said frustrated. I was thinking people are pissed, but frustrated. Okay,
we'll go there. We'll go
putting it. They're pissed. They're mad, and especially right now, and especially in California, where there's issues of wildfire and insurance availability. Again, I want to be that buddy in the industry that you can bitch out and say, and by the way, now that I've got it off my chest, what can I do? Because there are things that can be done. So we're going to have all of that available. So that, I hope that people, for every person that calls in with a question, there's probably 200 people that have the exact same question.
Absolutely.
There's nothing better than letting people reach out and ask those questions. So pushing that aside, liability insurance at its core is protecting you financially from things you do improperly. The best way I like to look at it is, I remember being a kid, it wasn't that long ago, You're supposed to say, of course not. You look, so young. Come on, Richard, give me something.
You are so young looking.
Thank you.
Well
Okay.
preserved. Well preserved.
Well preserved. That reminds me of a client that told me, I said, how are you today? And he said, well, I woke up on the right side of the dirt.
Yeah, I've heard
wow,
that.
That's a low bar. But
yeah.
I remember being a kid, and I had a friend that lived across the street, and we were playing catch with a baseball. And you can see where this is going. And I of course, threw the ball poorly because I'm so athletic. I've always been. And bashed through this expensive stained glass window of a neighbor. And that was a mistake, right? You could say negligent in doing that. I caused damage to someone else's property. So the liability policy that my parents carried at the time came in and said, okay, you were negligent, you did something improper, we're going to pay for that damage that occurred. And that's the most basic, simple, I think, ground up idea of what liability is. It protects you from the financial exposure you could have if you do something that is inappropriate. Because let's say we didn't have insurance, and that was a $10,000 stained glass window, right, that they had to have. Turns out they had to fly it in from Italy. I mean, it had to be, right? It couldn't just be a piece of glass from Home Depot. I had to bash the stained glass that was flown in from Italy at the neighbor's house. And if we didn't have a policy, we would have had no choice but to find a way to compensate them to be able to replace the window. But liability insurance came in and said, okay, we're going to pay, because that's what liability insurance does, because you were negligent and caused damage to another person's property.
I had a similar situation. I was a paper boy. And where we had the paper station, if you will, where we picked up our papers, we'd fold them, rubber band them, et cetera, et cetera. By the way, that was my favorite job to this day. As much as I love this industry, if I could go back and be a paper boy like I was back then in grade school and high school, I would go back, because number one, you had your own hours. You got to meet some incredible people, have great conversations. Not to say that I don't have great conversations now. I do. But there was just something about being outside all the time and bicycling and all these kinds of things. In any event, we were there at the station, and one of the other paper boys and I, for some stupid reason, we were throwing oranges at the side of a building that had a small little window way over to the upper left-hand corner of that wall. The rest of the wall was brick. So we were throwing at the brick in the center there, right? Somehow, this is why I'm not a pitcher in baseball. I had an errant orange go off to the left, and of course went through the window. A lot of conversation about with my parents about how stupid that was to do. You should not have done. They weren't calling me stupid. It was the action. My parents were not
very good.
They did not put us, they never put us down. They never criticized us in that context. And so I'm very, anyway. So it was very interesting how that whole thing played out. I can't remember if my parents or how it worked, or we just paid. I don't know if there was insurance involved. All I know was I did the same kind of thing you did, and I learned from it. Not now. Younger, my brother and I were throwing dirt clods at the side of our brick house. Well, of course, we broke a window, and so forth. But anyway, that's a sidebar there. Insurance is something that I don't want to say you have to have, but it sure would be better if you had it if you didn't. I want to talk to you a little bit, especially in regards to liability and so forth. And I want to go back to the medical insurance aspect. As I said, I have no insurance right now. Maybe when we're done here, I will be signing on the dotted line on DocuSign. But if someone doesn't have insurance and they have an emergency and they go to the ER, as you said, they can't turn you away. They will treat you, but you're going to get one heck of a bill. However, I understand, and this is part of knowing the rules. And you don't use this as your get out of jail free card, please. It would be better to have the insurance and then pay the premium and so on and so forth. But you can contact the billing department and they will have the equivalent of some kind of financial aid or something that will help you to be able to they will either reduce it so that you don't have such a massive bill, but you still agree to pay whatever the smaller amount is, that kind of thing. But a lot of people, they just get it's almost like the credit card companies and how the stress, they build because they call you and they harass you and they do these things. And it's like, you don't have to do that because they have insurance to cover their losses too. So the medical facilities, they have insurance as well, but they also have many of them, I'm not saying all, have some kind of, and I just use this term, financial aid. Is that fair to say that that's there?
It's even better than that. And again, this goes down to, a little bit of knowledge can go a long way. There's one thing that hospitals hate the most, and that's being ignored when a bill comes, right? I guess nobody likes to be ignored. But that gets them the most frustrated. And that's without personifying a business. That's what creates the most strife in a billing department at a hospital is when they have outstanding bills that are in the stack of, we don't know. Right? Is the person going to ever respond? Are they going to pay a penny? Should we write this off? Should we submit? I mean, what should we do?
Right.
So what the best thing to do, and I guess you could call it financial aid. I would say financial communication. The first thing you would want to do is reach out to the hospital and tell them, I am uninsured. First thing. Because you would assume they know because, well, you didn't present insurance when you came in the door, but they will not know that at that stage. You need to make, if you will, a proclamation that you are now receiving a bill as an uninsured person. Because what hospitals will do is there's different billing tiers. I know this is shocking. They charge an insurance company one amount that's quote unquote negotiated for procedures. They charge one insurance company one amount, a different insurance company another amount, Medicare a different amount, Medi-Cal a different amount if you're in California, and a cash paying patient a different amount for the same procedure. So the first thing you need to do, and you can guess if you don't have an insurance policy, which one of those do you think they're going to send you the bill for? The lowest of all of those or the highest? Of course, the first thing they're going to do is send you the highest bill because believe it or not, some people, and again, it depends on how significant the bill is, they'll just pay it or they'll start paying it.
Yeah,
it happens. So that's going to be the first thing is you need to let them know you are uninsured, that you do not have a policy backing that bill, that financial responsibility. And you can absolutely go to them and say, look, I could make you a payment, for the next 200 years and I won't get close to this.
Right.
So, what do you want to do? I mean, you are actually working with human beings at that point, right? And if you have those conversations and they know that you're not going to basically just walk out and never be seen again, you'd be shocked. I've heard of bills being reduced 90% on one phone call, literally one phone call, because they realize, don't forget, and to your point, they can write off losses just like we can write off losses as individuals. And I would assume that there's actually insurance that's somewhere far behind protecting them from catastrophic losses like that as well. So if they're able to get something and know that, well, we're going to get this from this client, the rest we can either deduct or we might find it, in some other place, they will do that. So again, you are absolutely right. Even though our inclination is, put your head in the sand and just hope it goes away, they'll just stop billing me eventually. That knee-jerk reaction tends to be the absolute worst way to deal with it. You got to hit it head on, have those conversations, and then have them again and again. After 6 months, say, look, you see, I've been making this little payment. We're never going to get anywhere. What do you think? Can we negotiate this down again, cut it in half? They're going to be happy as long as there's some level of communication going on.
You made a very important statement that I want to talk about that I keep in mind every time I talk to, first of all, my creditors, but also my vendors. My creditors, of course, being anybody that I owe money to that is based on credit. The other is vendors, such as your cell phone, your electric company, your insurance company, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There are human beings on the other end of the phone. And I have to tell you that I am very good at negotiating. I don't always get what I want. Sometimes they are adamant. No, I'm sorry. These are the policies. This, I can't change. First of all, the person on the phone didn't make the rules. Okay. That's number one. You have to remember, whether it's the insurance company or otherwise, they didn't make the rules. They're only carrying them out. And they're probably in a similar situation financially that you are, and they want to help you if they can. So that's the first thing you need to remember. Second of all, and this goes more to the metaphysical, if you will, or spiritual aspects of this program. When you get on the phone with some of these people, not only do you want to remember they're human beings just like you, they're going through the same kinds of things. Remember that there is that old phrase, what goes around comes around. If you attack them, they're more likely to hang up on you, because nowadays they're not going to put up with that. And they're probably instructed, if they get abusive, you hang up. And they're justified in doing that. So I go into it, first of all, knowing that they didn't make the rules. Second of all, I'm going to get a lot further with a calmer, peaceful demeanor. I may not get everything I want. I may not get anything I want. But I'll tell you what, I'll get off that phone call telling that person, hey, I appreciate your consideration. Thank you for taking the time. I understand you can't do anything for me at this time. And I usually end most of my calls these days in the last few years with, and blessings to you. And I mean that, because I want blessings too. And again, what comes around goes around. But I in any event,
I like the goes around, comes around. What I always say is I go to the old expression that you get more flies with honey than vinegar.
I was going to use that, but I don't care for flies buzzing around. But
you wouldn't want them either way, right? So that is sort of a bizarre expression. Yeah, how do I get more flies? Yeah, maybe that's not the best expression, but it's really true. And and I do this. I do something similar, and just in general, not even if it's in negotiation. When I call somewhere, and anyone who's talked to me or seen me on the phone knows, when someone answers the phone, I say, hi, how are you doing? And it always throws people off, because they're expecting me to, just start right in with why I'm calling. They're not expecting to be hit with a question. And I do it because I'm genuinely just trying to have some, if not minor, connection with the person, because they are a person.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I find that the conversation is immediately on a different level than it is if you were to just immediately roll off. They answer the phone, you say, I got this bill. Okay, you can get there. But when they answer the phone, you could say, hi, how are you? And they'll usually be taken back and they say, fine, and then there's silence, or you'll get, oh, well, it's been one of those days. You get some level of connection. And I'm like you. I might not get necessarily the goal of the call exactly the way I wanted. Mm-hmm. However, I will leave the call feeling better no matter what the outcome, just because I set the tone, right? I set the direction it was going to go from the beginning, versus setting, and I could have set it, in the wrong direction and been pissed to begin with, and almost guaranteed to be pissed when it ended, regardless of what actually transpires on the call.
Well, and I will also tell you too that I'll be calling a vendor or a creditor, and there's a goal in mind, and they'll answer the call, and they'll start out by saying, and who am I speaking with? Very calmly, and I say, my name is Richard, and how are you today? Well, I'm doing pretty well, all in all. How are you doing? And they will say, well, I am doing however they're doing, and thank you for asking. And it's that connection. I never dissected it, diagrammed it quite the way that you are in terms of the conversation. It's just something that I naturally do when I deal even with, for example, my wife's situation, whether it's the Social Security Administration, Medicare, her bank, et cetera, et cetera. And I do it.
All wonderful places to deal with. You pick some beauties.
Yeah.
At
Well,
least you didn't say insurance companies.
Well, I have called my insurance company on a number of occasions, not happy with certain outcomes, and saying, "Hey, what's going on here? I thought that this was going to be resolved within 30 days. Now I'm out $1,000 that I had to put on a credit card because blah 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 blah. Could you please explain why? And is there any way I could get reimbursed for this that I should not have had to have paid?" By the way, that's another area in auto insurance. For example, when you go to rent a car, if you've had an accident and you need a rental car, most of the policies you have 30 days on a rental car, and they cover that. And I'm going to tout this just because Enterprise has been really good because my insurance policy has X per day, the dollar amount, right? Well, there's no way that that's what Enterprise rents those vehicles for, but they give me that rate anyway. But there's one thing that a lot of people don't know, and this is something you need to call your insurance company about before you go to the rental car place. They offer this insurance that basically, this is the way it was described to me by the woman who gave me the keys to the car. She says, for an extra $20 a day, if you total this car, it gets crushed, it gets compacted or something, you bring it back, all you do is hand us the keys and you walk away. And I'm going, okay. Well, it was after the fact that I checked with my insurance company and they say, oh yeah, you have that on your policy for the rental car. So I ended up spending $1,000 more than I needed to. But as I said earlier in the program, it gave me peace of mind. That $1,000 actually was worth it. So that's something that people need to consider. We're talking with Karl Susman of and he has an insurance agency, if you will. Karl Susman, he is an agent, I should say. Susman Insurance Agency. It's down there in the heart of Accident Central, Los Angeles, California.
I've heard it called a lot of things. Wow.
Yeah, Accident Central. And I guess just for so to speak legal reasons, I'm going to give out this information real quick here. You have two license numbers, right? And one is 0B33921 and the other one is 0B75129. Now I know that you have to be licensed in order to sell insurance, but you apparently have two different licenses. Are they for different kinds of insurance that you provide?
It's a great question. There was a new law that went on the books in January that you have to list your insurance license in email communications. And me, in the abundance of caution, I guess that I have, I list my individual and my corporate, right? The one for the agency that I own, as well as my personal license. And those license numbers will correspond to different types of insurance that I'm licensed to sell: life insurance, health insurance, car insurance, home insurance. They're all the same number, at least in California.
Now, I want to give out your information here, but I want to make sure that these are things that you want to give out in this context. I have an email address that starts with Karl, Karl @ And is this an email address folks can contact you at?
They can, sure.
All right. And that is Karl at SusmanInsurance.com. That's Karl at SusmanInsurance.com. That's SUSMAN Insurance, INSURANCE.com. You're down there in Los Angeles, California. And this phone number that I have here, is that also one that if they wanted to phone or text you, they could do that? Or is that a private number?
Nope, that is our main number, and I have a toll-free number, but nobody cares anymore about that, right?
Because everything's free. The phone numbers are free.
Whoever calls can call wherever, right?
That's right. And they can call or text 310-820-5200. I love doing that. 310-820-5200. It just flows. I love how that works.
Well, if you look at the phone, it's all on the same line too. That was by design. It's all the middle column of the phone.
Oh my Lord. Well, I see what you're saying about
more impressed with me now. I know.
I am much more. I tell you what, I'll be even more impressed if each one of those numbers associates with the letter on that key and spelled something out like Susman, but I don't think that's how that works.
No, it doesn't. But I do want to make one point. People,
Yes.
Please feel free to reach out to me. But I do want to make the point loud and clear that this interview and the program that I'm doing with you is absolutely not meant to be sales oriented.
No, not at all.
I will help anyone that needs help. I'll give advice to anyone that needs advice, but this is not a promotional concept for me at all. We'd actually spoken about this, that I could even use a pseudonym, if we wanted to be sure that people didn't feel like, oh, I'm just trying to, prop myself up to sell insurance. That's not what I'm trying to do with this or with the other programs that we're doing together.
Right, exactly. And then this is not an infomercial, folks. This is a program that is designed to provide you with information. You can choose any insurance agent or agency or company that you want, or don't choose any at all. It's one of the slogans that we have here on Tell Me Your Story, Karl, giving people choices and knowledge of those choices to help make their dreams come true. That is what we're doing here. That's what Karl is doing here. Because I remember when I was with a multi-level marketing company, one of the first things they told me was information is power. Now, not just any old information either, accurate, vetted information. And in my conversations and my gut, my intuition, I trust Karl, to share with you the kind of information that you need, that you can use however you choose to do so. You don't have to call Karl. We're just putting that information out there. So let's continue on here for a few more minutes here. Karl D. Susman, CPCU. What does that stand for?
That is Chartered Property and Casualty Underwriter. You don't want to get into the alphabet soup. I have probably 14 of them. And that's really because I grew up watching the School of Rock cartoons where knowledge is power. So for me, there's you can never know it all. So I keep going. And anytime I find that there's potentially more information, I'll go and learn. And then somehow they send me a diploma with some other information, some other letters, and I just tack them on at the end. But
well, and sometimes the information, it actually changes. It's not like they add more. It's like they've changed. They change the rules. They change.
Yes. Well, with an insurance license, we're required to have continuing education. So we do have to take courses that give us updated well, I wish. We have to take courses to renew our license. The problem is that the courses, you could, if you wanted, take the same course over and over and over, year after year after year. And I wish that weren't the case, because it sort of defeats the purpose of continuing education. I mean, the name is continuing, as if there's more. So I always try and select something that I don't know anything about to learn. But the concept is exactly like you're saying, things change. I mean, the advice that we're giving today, the marketplace that we're in today is completely different than it was 5 years ago, and doesn't even resemble the way it was 10 years ago.
I just counted, at least as of this program, I just counted the acronym, the alphabet soup, and it looks like you have 16 currently. That will change. It will grow, as you've just described, as to why it will grow. But
you know what? I want to keep learning. You can never know it all. And I jokingly say that, as long as you know more than the other person in the room, you're brilliant. I forgot who told me that, but I got a kick out of it. But my feeling has always been that, and it's just turning out to be factually accurate these days, you can never know it all. And when you're in an industry that's so dynamically changing, if you really want to know what you're talking about, you have to keep up with things that are changing. Otherwise, I've talked to other agents. I'm a member of a lot of different groups, and sometimes I cringe when they're saying things, and I feel like saying, guys, it hasn't been like that for like 10 years. I mean, you got to pay attention to this stuff. I hope you're not telling clients that, know. But like anything else, there's good doctors, there's bad doctors, there's good brokers, there's bad brokers. You have to just make sure that you've got someone that is a specialist in what it is that you need.
Well, there's an interesting statistic that I want to bring up, folks. Now, it goes back to 2019, granted, but I'm sure that this number has probably decreased, and I'll explain that as I tell you. This is from an Ernst and Young survey of 2019. 36% of individuals back then, and we're talking 4 years ago, have complete trust in their insurance providers. And this lack of trust on the part of the other, what was that? What that 64% who don't trust their insurance company or their provider. I'm sure that has increased higher than 64%. And obviously those who do trust, it has gone down, I'm sure. I'm not sure what that is today, 2023. But by the same token, I would think that some of the things you've just mentioned factor into why insurance.
There's no question. There's no question. And, I'm always first to say that I don't just stand up and toe the company line. I'm a consumer before I'm a broker. I really, really am. And when carriers do things that are improper or inappropriate or just wrong, I'm the first to call them out on it. And I do plenty of times. But I think a lot of the distrust that exists is genuinely because of a lack of understanding, right? If you buy an electric RC race car and it doesn't fly, you're going to be pissed unless someone tells you, no, that's a car. That's not a flying drone. Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of a lot of what's going on is there's such a lack of basic understanding of what some of these policies that are out there are supposed to do versus what people's expectations or wishes, right?
Yeah.
That they would do. It's creating this. And I think as brokers, we are partially, if not more than that, responsible because you can't always be the one saying what they want to hear, right? You have to actually tell them the truth of what the options are. Even if the options are not great, make sure that people actually know what it is so they're not surprised.
Right. I have a feeling that I can't help it because this came to mind when you said that. I have a feeling that some of these insurance agents around the country who maybe are giving people old information or maybe inaccurate, and they're actually doing the deceiving. They don't want to share this because they take the position of Nicholson in that movie. You want the truth? You can't handle the truth.
You can't handle the truth. That's
right. And that's right. I take umbrage with any institution, especially government, let alone insurance, that doesn't want to tell us the truth because they don't think we can handle it. They take that position, and I'm going, who are you to decide what I can and cannot handle? That is not up to you. And so, folks, if you have questions, well, you're going to have an opportunity to ask those questions. We'll let you know when. And it will be in an hour-long program that Karl is going to be hosting and talking to you via whether you text him your question, you phone him. We're going to work out all the logistics. It's coming soon, I promise you, and we will let you know. And I'm excited about the prospects for educating people. I mean, just providing people with what they really do need. And that's another question that I'm going to ask you this question now. I'm going to have you go ahead and address it, and then we're going to wrap things up here on the program. But I guess it really determines, first of all, which kind of insurance you're looking for, whether it's auto, homeowners insurance, life insurance, medical insurance, which again, I know you do not provide, but I'm sure that you might have some answers for us. Or I don't know what other kinds of insurance there are for the average consumer, but I think I've covered those bases. And let's look at let's just look at auto insurance. That's an easy one to delineate. How do I know how much insurance I need or what kind of auto insurance I need, whether I'm trying to comply with the regulations or I just want that peace of mind?
It's a great question. The first part is regulations, which, by the way, the laws are changing. There's been regulations that have passed in California that are raising the minimum amount of liability insurance that you need to carry, and it's a taper over several years that I believe starting next year. But the simple answer is, if you knew what coverages were available and you knew what those coverages did, you would know exactly what you would want, what you'd want to have.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to be able to have that basic knowledge to be able to make those informed decisions. And that's really what it comes down to. What I think you might need, I might have an informed opinion, I might not. But who knows you better, me
Right.
or you? It's going to be you. So the goal is, and the answer is, how do you know how much liability insurance, for example, you need? Well, once you understand what liability is, you will know how much you need. You'll be able to say, okay, give me prices with this limit. Give me prices with that limit. You can't ask that question or make that decision intellectually until you know what that coverage is or that it's even available.
Well, I tell you what, I like going to the grocery store. I like walking up and down down the aisles, looking
Hope you're not
for.
walking on the shelves.
No,
I'm not going to your market.
Well, it depends on what store you're going into. They may be quite empty, but then again, most of them are pretty full. In any event, I like looking at the items. I'm looking for ketchup, and I find the aisle that has the condiments. Oh, and there's Heinz and Hunt's and this and that and the other, and I'm going to read the ingredients, or I'm going to read the nutritional. Okay, how many carbs, how much sugar, how much this, how much that, and on and on and on. The calories. I like doing that, but I don't want to go online and go through a list of stuff. And that's where the agent comes in my opinion, that most people, they don't search and look for because it's just too overwhelming.
No, I get it. And like we said at the beginning, it used to be you didn't have to. You could just go and you'd have two options for ketchup, and both were probably pretty good. They were made with tomatoes and tasted good. But now you've got so many variations and so many different possibilities that you have to either find someone that can explain it to you and help you decide, or find someone that you trust enough to make the decision, at least the majority of a recommendation for you. But you do have to have some basic information to be able to make an informed decision.
Well, that is what your job is all about. That is what your passion is all about. And that is helping people to make a more informed, an informed, if not more informed decision. I will, again, these thoughts come to mind and I have to express them. The universe asks the questions. I'm just along for the ride, Karl. You have to understand. All right.
We all are.
So what came to mind was people need to be informed about their insurance needs as well as wants and desires and so forth. But it's like I compare that to the electorate. They need to be informed too, and and they're overwhelmed. I don't know how many on the right there are running for the top office in the land right now, going to these debates. I think at one time, the last cycle we had, there were like, 13 or 16 or 20. And I'm just sitting here going, you 20 know that only one of you is going through to the finale in Vegas, right? Using an ATG analogy. But yet there they are. And it's like, oh my gosh. And by the way, I know you don't do this. You will inform people. You do not put a judgment on any insurance company or agency, etc. And I bring this up because in politics, if I hear a candidate criticizing his opponent, I won't vote for him at all. If you cannot stand on your own merits, tell me what you are going to do and stick with that. Don't go off on a tangent. Oh, he or she, they're bad. You lost me. You don't get my vote. And there's nothing you can do that will get it.
You must have a hard time finding someone to vote for.
Yeah, I know. That's the real challenge. That's why I like the whole thing with the section in the ballots during general elections when you vote for judges. Whether you retain them or you keep them. I don't even know these people. So usually I just retain them. What do I know?
Right.
and who has the time to research all this stuff? Again, who has the time to research all the insurance possibilities? And I'd like to look at it that way. Then that's what you're going to provide to our listeners here on this station. So I'm very excited about your coming on board and being a part not only of Tell Me Your Story, but also of this fine radio station. So I do have, because you are on Tell Me Your Story, 3 final questions I ask all of my guests. All right.
Alrighty.
But before I ask those questions, I want to thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, where we are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. As I said earlier, we are here on Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m. and 9 a.m. on Wednesdays for a special edition of Tell Me Your Story, where you'll also hear Karl Susman talk to you about ostensibly Insurance 101, just informing you. We stream at those times, by the way, at richarddugan.com. We also podcast on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and many other locations. And we are on YouTube, where you can watch these interviews. And I hope you'll select subscribe, but more importantly, notification, so that when a new conversation is posted, you will be notified and you can participate in that conversation by listening to the information that our guests have. We also ask that if you can support this program financially, the work that we are doing, that we've been doing for over 15 years, that I've been doing for probably more like 40, 45 years, we would be greatly appreciative. We have a PayPal account. It's there for your security as well as ours. And when they ask you for the email address to whom to send the contribution, the support, the kindness, if you will, it is richard@richarddugan.com. That's richard@richarddugan.com. And also spend some time going within, listening to that still small voice during this, the decade of perfect vision, the 2020s. With all of that said, the first of my 3 questions to you, Karl, here on Tell Me Your Story is, who is Karl Susman?
Karl Susman is a husband and a father.
What is your life's purpose?
My life's purpose is to leave a legacy of happiness and people that will enrich themselves as they grow older.
And finally, and I hope you get this movie reference, I say that every time, and some of them do, some of them don't. What was your best day?
My best day, I would say, would be June 13th, 1993.
Okay. And I thank you so much for being a part of this program, as well as the station on which we broadcast, and look forward to having more conversations with you down the road.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to it.
And I thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to Lal. Jeanette, I am still listening. Dad, I know you're happy because I am. And Smokey, I will see you down the road.